coming today. And we're also putting this online, so those that can't make it today or not quite comfortable yet can watch it online. And this is our first LDS back this year, so yay, y'all are our first ones. And I want to take a moment to introduce both our moderator and our panel. Our moderator is Roz Lane, and our panelists are Pamela Hardaway, Frankie, Lawton, and Ila Gilstrap and Demi Gilstrap. And for those of you that don't know much about them, I'm just going to a very brief little something about them because they're going to be talking about themselves today. Ila has taught school for over 50 years. So she's 57 years, wow. And then she finally decided that was enough of that. And Frankie, you grew up in this area, right? I think if I remember right. And yeah, you went to Booker, and you also went to started your own beauty shop, which is cool. I so wanted to do, and I'm gonna make you tell us some of those because when we were in a meeting sometime last year, and they started talking about all these terms that were really cool when it came to hair, and I couldn't remember any of them to put them in the exhibit. So neither could they. So it's like, well, maybe we'll get some of those on tape today. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Roz, who has, I'm sure, some really wonderful questions for everyone to answer today.
Thank you very much. I'm going to stand over here. We've had our introductions, and as you know, I'm Roz Lane, and I chair the Audie Murphy Cotton Museum. So just wanted to let you know what my credentials are. Very little. I don't do a whole lot. And then I just wanted to tell you that this is our first time back, as she told you. I call it Lunch and Learn. They have another name for it, but I always refer to it as Lunch and Learn. So we're going to kind of discuss some different things. But you know, this year is like most of the others. We didn't get a chance to do Black History Month. Last month was Women's Month, so we had a lot of different things going on. We didn't get a chance to do that either. So we're going to kind of make this a combination of Black History and Women's Month, and we're calling it our own April series. And I want you to know that every one of us in our life, we have a story. We have a story about ourselves. And I want you to think about that, and I want you to be prepared to talk to people about your story. It's very important for us to reflect in our lives what our story is. I spoke to the Altrusa group not too long ago, and I shared with them my story. And the beginning of my story was my father stabbed my mother and left her for dead. And when we get a chance, we'll talk about my story at another time. I don't want to upstage these ladies, but I just want you to know that everyone has a story in their life. We all weren't born with that silver spoon in our mouths. Right. And a bunch of us weren't even born with a plastic spoon in our lives. Right. So I want us to be able to talk about our stories. You agree, right? So the first thing, and we're going to discuss some different things. Ms. Lawton, what she's talking about is we were discussing what it was like to get our hair done. And I was telling them that when my mother used to do mine, she'd smack me in the head because she was in my kitchen, and I was wiggling because it was nappy, and I didn't want anybody combing my kitchen. So we all had different ways that we were doing for us for getting our hair done. But the first thing I want to do, and I'm going to start with Pam, and I'm going to ask her, you have been around for a couple of years with your mom, and I want you to tell us, what's the most proudest thing that you experienced with your mother?
Well, she's such a strong, ambitious visionary. She's such a strong, ambitious visionary. Nothing gets her down, and she always has a positive note for you. There was a time when I used to talk to her, which we talk every day, and I was really stressed out, you know. My money was funny, and nose complaining and griping. And she looked up at me and said, "You know what, little girl? They never quit making money. So don't fear. You'll get some more. It's not over." So that's just one thing. And then I admire her and want her to really give me those recipes. We still do a soul food Sunday at her house. Her mother did it, and now the tradition's carried over her. What I mean by soul food Sunday is 4 meats, all the good vegetables, cabbage, black-eyed peas, greens, cornbread, candied yam, okra, the works. So I don't know if I'm that strong, but I'll try, in the event something happens to her, to kind of keep that tradition going. But she does a soul food Sunday, every Sunday. And she's just a great inspiration in life.
Roz, can you close this door?
Yeah, let me,
Yeah, I don't know, Tiki is something.
Yeah, Demi? And I know that we kind of hit you hard, because I just told you a few minutes ago. But I know there's some special things. And what do you call Miss Ila?
I call her Mama.
Mama, okay. So tell me, as you've been growing up, what you are proudest of from Mama.
Well, my grandma has done so many, she's accomplished so many things and succeeded in so many things, and it always inspires me for when I'm older to work just as hard as her and be able to do the same things. And I love my grandmother because no matter how old she gets, she always lets me come during the summer, and she's always doing things with me and making sure I'm having a great time. So I just love my grandmother so much.
Now, ladies, you have one of your offspring beside you. And I know you have watched them grow, and you have watched them thrive. So Ila, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
And tell me about Demi and maybe of your other daughters.
Okay. I guess I could talk about Demi and my other 2 daughters, and even my son, really, for a good while. Demi has been coming every summer to stay the whole summer with me ever since she was a baby. And I am so proud of her. She doesn't attend school, and she attends school, but she does it on the computer from home. Well, her mother isn't there with her, so she's there by herself all day. And I think that's wonderful that she can, contain herself and not looking up at television and doing all that. But she has straight A's in her classes. And I'm just so proud of her for that. Shelby leaves her schedule out what she's supposed to do, and she doesn't fill the schedule so it takes anything from her classwork as such. But she does it all on her own. There's nobody there to tell her, or Demi, you need to cut the TV off now and get back with your classwork. No, she does it all on her own, and she does know how proud I am of her for that. And I'm sure she got a lot of that from her mother. Her mother goes to work every day. She makes sure that everything is outlined for Demi, and Demi knows, I don't care who comes and rings that doorbell, don't even get up to see who it is. You don't answer, you don't say a word, you don't do nothing. And of course, Shelby has told me then, and says, well, Mama, what if it's Mama? And she said, well, you're not even supposed to know it's Mama because you're not supposed to get up and look out the door. Nothing. Just keep it closed as if nobody's there. And I think that's really a safe thing that she's teaching her to do.
What is her grade?
She's in 10th grade, and she has all A's, I'm happy to say. Yeah, she had that even when she was in the classroom. But anyway, back to now Shelby and Stacy. You know, I fell. I'll mention that real quick. I fell, and Stacy has been here with me in Greenville from New York since what? November the 25th. That's when I was taken to the hospital for a concussion that I had. And thank God I didn't break one bone in my body. Well, God didn't let me break a bone in my body. It was all the goodness, you know, to Him. And Stacy came home. She came home that Sunday night, tried to get something out Sunday morning, couldn't. So she came Sunday night. They were just bringing me out of the operating room in Denton. And she has been with me ever since. She just left everything. Only thing she wanted to make sure that she brought was her computer. And she does all her work with her job from and with the computer. She's just, you know, she's just an A1 daughter. And she wants to boss me around sometime. I said, sweetheart, now listen, I run this house. But we have a lot of fun together. And when she's going home, and I told her, I said, Stacey, I'm doing fine now. So you can go home whenever you get ready. She said, Mom, well, I will go when I think you're 100% well. I said, well, that's wonderful. You stay here, you know, as long as you want. And of course, she went to Greenville High School. She was in the top 10 of her class. And then she went to Rice University. And while she was at Rice University, in fact, completing Rice University, Kodak, I'm assuming she applied to Kodak in New York, and they hired her. And she sent us and told her she was going to get her an apartment. She didn't remember, she didn't have a stitch of furniture. And thank the Lord, Melvin and I were able to go and pick her some furniture. I said, we'll just pick the furniture that we like, because we can't wait till she comes, because it's going to be ready when she gets here. And a big truck took her car and her furniture to New York, and she stayed there in where Kodak was. What part of?
It's Rochester, New York.
Rochester,
She
that's
was in
exactly,
Greece.
Rochester. And then she didn't leave Rochester to come to New York City until Rochester sold the part that she was working in, but they wanted to send her to Atlanta, and that's where my other daughter was. Send her to Atlanta, which she said, no, I don't think I like Atlanta. And she had been debating on when can I get back, go to graduate school so I can get my master's. But she could never find the time to do it, and she decided, this is the time. This is the time that I should do it. And that's what she did. So she moved to New York City, and she enrolled at Columbia. She got her master's from Columbia. Melvin and I went up for the graduation, of course, but Melvin was kind of ill during that time. Bless his heart, he didn't get to attend the graduation because he just didn't feel like going. And so Stacy was happy, you know, that he was there. And then she got her job there in New York City. And she's been living in New York City, you know, ever since then. And she loves New York. And we've been up there to see her. We went up there to visit with her and all. And she got married. But I can't say too much about that right now. Because, yeah. Well, that's a whole new story. But anyway, she's a very happy person, and if you ever meet her, you will realize, you know, that she's a lovely, lovely person. Shelby went to TWU, got her degree, then she got a job in Atlanta at the same school that she is right now. Then she went on to get her master's from Michigan State, which they have a section somewhere Michigan State does where you can get your work, you know, do your work to get your master's there. And she has hers, and, you know, and I'm just so proud of them. My son went to school. We worked very hard for 4 years over at ET. He got his degree, but the only thing I'm disappointed in my son with is he didn't get what he was interested in. You know what he does now? He drives a truck. I wish you had told us that you wanted a degree in truck driving. I could have sent you to somebody in Greenville to get you a degree. But he's happy at doing, you know, what he's doing.
That's right.
And that's what I want my
I see him on
kids to be happy.
Facebook, he's doing great. So as you can tell, this is one proud mom.
Yes.
And the same for you.
First, I want to give honor to God and for my health and strength and for enabling me to be here today. I want to talk about my daughter. My daughter is a very, very sweet girl. I fell in November the 8th last year and broke my hip and I couldn't, broke my knee and I couldn't even walk at all. I had to have total care. November the 8th. She was there from November the 8th until now. She come there to bring her my great grandbaby. Her name is Paisley Ray. She was there I stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks, and then I was admitted to Wycliffe Nursing Home, and I was there for 3 weeks. And she and the baby was there every day. And I guess it was the lady over the nursing home. She came and told me, said, whose baby is this? I said, it's my grandbaby. Well, it can't, we can't have it staying here every day like this. I said, am I going to stay every day? She said, yeah. I said, well, they'll have to stay every day. She came every morning at 11 o'clock, and she left at 7. She brought the grandbaby there. Her mother teaches school. Her name is Hardaway. And her mother teaches school out at Crockett. And she had to keep the baby. So the baby had to stay with me. And Pam had to come to see about me. So she said, well, I'll be back to check with you about that. So she never did come back. So the checking was, she was going to be there with the baby, every day with the baby. Well, when time come for me to get out of the hospital, I was there 3 weeks and for rehab. And I needed a wheelchair. I needed a wheelchair, my own personal wheelchair, before I could get out. And so I told Pam about it. That was a week before Thanksgiving. And she said, okay, Mama, I'll go see about getting you a wheelchair. Well, she left me that morning and left the baby there on a Wednesday. And she stayed gone all day. I cried. I said, she forgot about me. She won't come back to see about me. But I was needing a wheelchair. When she came back, it was about 4 o'clock. She had a wheelchair. She went everywhere looking for me a wheelchair until she found it. And I'm real proud of her. I couldn't do without her. She was working over there in Dallas. She was a, what? You working, were you Chase Bank?
Chase Home me.
She was working home lending for Chase Bank in Dallas. And then I had a stroke. And she came home, and she's been home ever since then. She lives a block from me. And I'm happy. Well, of course, me fixing hair is what I love to do. I got $1.50 a head, and maybe $2. And it was down in the flat where I worked. And at that time, I made good money with $1.50 and $2. And now you can't sit in a chair under 65, you know, to get it fixed. I paid, my mother did. My mother, that was when I finished school in 48. I went to beauty school in 48. I graduated in 48. It was only $65 for me to go to school. Now it's 500, 5,000 or more for you to go to school. And I love doing hair. I did hair salon for 20 years. And then I decided, well, I was married and my husband, he worked out in the system. And I decided I wanted to do something different. Well, then I went to Bishop College. And a lot of my classmates didn't know I was going to college. But see, I was going 3 days a week when they were laying up sleeping. And they didn't have anything else to do but do that. And I really did enjoy it. And I think me being 90 years old, I had a birthday, 91 years old. I had a birthday last Wednesday. And I thank God for it. And I have been happy. I have been blessed. Better than blessed. I had some portion of health and strength. And I have had some portion of better things in life. And I can't ask for the Lord to do me any more than He's already done. If He never do another thing, He's done enough.
Well, before we have the ladies talk some more, does anybody from the audience have any questions of them? Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Gilstrap,
Yes, ma'am.
did you start teaching in the 60s? When did you start teaching?
I want to think about that a second.
When
Let me
did
see
you, when did you
I
start
started
teaching?
Teaching, I've been, after I got out of college, I was working as, yeah, about 58 or 59.
Okay, I
Yeah,
was curious.
okay. And that was in Conroe. That was my first job.
Okay.
Yes, Rashawn?
I know we haven't spoken much about your career yet, but as you went through the school, as you went through the school district and learning, as we talked about Black History Month and Women's History Month from last month, most women are teachers, most teachers were women, and I wanted to better understand, did you experience any type of harassment from the male colleagues that you may have had, or did you experience a glass ceiling as an instructor in the school systems that you worked for?
Well, no, when I went to Bowie School, there weren't any black teachers there. I was the first black teacher to go to Bowie. And, you know, that was going to be a great experience for me as such, but it never nerved me up, you know, whatsoever. I had one episode in Bowie. That was my first day on campus. You know, then, well, I guess they may do it now. They would put a list of all of the kids that's going to be in your room on the door. All right? And my desk, I had pulled it sort of close to the door. And I was at my desk. This lady came up with her daughter, white lady, of course, there weren't any blacks out there. And so she took her finger, she went down this list, and she went all the way down, and she got down to the end. She said, "Oh, thank God you are not in this room." That is the only incident in which I had nothing to do with whatsoever, you know, that I had at Bowie all the years that I was there. The only one. There wasn't no big deal about that. Okay?
Pass that over to her, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, you.
I want to tell you about my grandchildren. she has twin girls and a son. And my son lived in Maryland, and my granddaughter lived in Maryland. And my son has,
Double masters.
he has double masters, and he works for,
The department. He's an executive director for HR for the Department of Labor for the federal government.
and my daughter,
Her granddaughter. She's a branch marketing manager for T-Mobile. They've been up there for over 10 years. They went to get their master's at the University of Maryland. He graduated from the University of Houston, and she graduated over here in Commerce at Texas A&M. And they went up there and thought they were coming back to Texas, but it just didn't work out.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Our big audience here. Okay. The young lady that just stood up and
I
asked.
do have
I'm
another
sorry.
question.
Okay.
You mentioned you went to, you hairdressed, and then you went to Bishop College, or did you go to Bishop before the hairdressing?
no, after.
Okay, and then what did you do?
Well, then after I came home, I worked at a nursing home.
Okay,
I worked at Greenwood Nursing Home, and I would go to work at 10 to 6, 10 at night, to 6 in the morning. I would take a shower at the nursing home. I would go home, get dressed, and go to work, go to school. I taught school at,
She's substitute.
I'm a substitute teacher at LP Waters.
thank you,
That's what I did.
thank you.
And I did that for about 8 years, working in a nursing home, and I got my CNA license, and I was just there. Busybody.
So she's had dual careers back when we only had one.
Yeah.
And as I was saying, the young lady that stood up and asked you the question, that is my daughter-in-law, and she is the mother of our track star, Tara Davis. This is Rayshawn Davis, and you know that Tara just broke Jackie Joyner-Kersey's record.
Wow.
So, are there any other questions? Yes.
For you, so I'm thinking some for you as a beautician. But what I wanted to know is, when, as an educator and for 57 years, what is it like to have the students that you taught come to you and you see them, that they've been successful, and even the ones that are not so successful? But how does that make you feel? And can you share an experience with us about how, you know, a time like that of one of your successful students that you taught?
Yeah, and you mentioned about students I taught. Well, I just had a student that called me, didn't remember her from the moon as such. She called me just and told me who she was. And I said, sweetheart, I'm sorry, I'm not remembering you. I said, did I teach you? She said, yes, ma'am, you were my favorite teacher. And she lives in Rowlett now. And she said, told me she was going to come and see me. I said, well, make sure you call me before you come. I said, because if you just come to the door, I'm not going to know you, and I'm not letting you in. And we had a big laugh, you know, about that. And it was just really interesting to look back over the kids. I meet some of them in the grocery store. Now, that's where I meet most of them. In the grocery store, well, of course, there's this tall, handsome young man. Most of them have a beard. They have 2 or 3 kids back there with them, and then there's another lady that you assume is his wife. You know what you were thinking about, man and wife and all. And then they'll come up and just hug you before telling you or saying anything. And of course you find yourself pushing them back. So, Miss Gilstrap, this is so-and-so and so, which doesn't help me a bit. You know, they were in my classroom, these are my kids, and this is my wife, and then a lot of them, then I will start remembering them. Especially, most of my kids didn't get me into trouble at all, because they know I didn't take that stuff. No, we just kept everything going, you know, well in the classroom. I tried to make everything interesting to them in the classroom. We even had chickens in our classroom. We raised a garden outside of our classroom. They picked, we didn't have anything but tomatoes and spinach, of course. They picked that, they took it to their cafeteria, they washed it, and they made us all a salad. For my classroom, and when we went to lunch, we had our salad in there, you know. But the things that I did, like with the chickens in the classroom, I always got permission from the principal. Never had trouble with him at all. And where I got to the 4th grade, I started at Boo in the 5th grade, but when we got to the 4th grade, there was an opening the next year. And my principal was Charles Chillery, and he wasn't the easiest thing in the world to get along with, but you know, we got along fine, because I stayed out of his way as such. And he had never had a problem with me with parents, with that. You know, that can bring a lot of disturbance. When teachers having problems with the kids. I didn't have a problem with my kids. And I asked him if I could move to the 4th grade. Had only been in the 5th grade 1 year. And he said, of course you can. And I realized later his daughter was going to be in the 4th grade. And I said, well, maybe he wants her to be in my room. And she was in my room, Leanne. Never forget that. But I got along with them.
You want to tell us about the go-getters?
And I had these fabulous Gilstrap go-getters, and they were fabulous. We would have programs, important programs like Veterans Day, and our Congressman Ralph Hall would always make sure that he was in Greenville the day that I was going to have my program. And he would come, and he would talk to the parents. Well, you know, they were happy to see Ralph Honolulu. That's all. He was their congressman. And to the children, and it was just wonderful. My teaching years, that's when I stayed in there so long, because it was absolutely wonderful. The Gilstrap go-getters. And they were, as far as I'm concerned, they were famous. Everybody around knew and heard.
They were.
Yeah, so they were performing, but now I had another group when I first came to Greenville and taught at Fred Douglas. They were the Douglas X, those little bitty little girls. And they were performing at the LP Waters at their football teams. And I often wondered, why didn't Carver have a drill team? But they didn't. No, and my little girls would go out there and do their thing on that field.
And they've been in the Christmas parades and everything.
Yeah, they were very, very, very good, very good.
Did you teach them their dances?
Yes, I taught, and I couldn't even dance, but I taught them their dances, and we used a record player, you know, for the good. Because one thing they knew after we learned it, you know, there's no such thing as you messing up on that line. We didn't play that. You know, that's out. And they were just as, and the parents, I had the most wonderful parents you could ever want, a teacher would ever want to have. They would come to my house once a year, the children, the principal, and the parents. And I guess every child's parent came. And we would have a cookout at my house. We would play games in the backyard. You know, we played baseball. And they said, Miss Gilstrap, when are we going back to your house? I said, not until next year now. No, not until next year. But my parents, and even the grandparents, my principal, my students were just absolutely perfect. I mean, they were just perfect. And I'll never forget Congressman Hall told me, son, I wish I could get you in Washington. And I said, if you pay me enough, you can. And we'd have a big laugh about it, but you know, I loved the kids and they loved me. And handwriting was one of my #1 things that I always, you know, and I'm not, which I am bragging on them too, My kids had the best handwriting in Bowie School. You remember when the little girl fell in that hole?
Yes, I did.
You remember her?
Yes.
Well, my kids, every one of them wrote the little, you know, she was a young child too. Each one of them wrote that child a letter, letting her know how much, you know, they were pulling for her and all. And the child's mother wrote the class a long letter back and thanking them for, you know, they didn't even know the child. She said she felt those letters, when she'd read them to her, would help her, you know, improve her. And that's what that's what she did. And whatever the Gilstraps did, or were going to do, I have to give credit to the Herald Banner. They would always be there. Not that I was inviting them to come. They would just come. I had dinners, they would be there. And they would eat dinner right there in the classroom. Yeah. So my teaching years were absolutely perfect to me. And I think the parents were very appreciative. And I know my kids loved me because I still hear from them. And as I said, I don't have any earthly idea who they are.
People with secret.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Thank you so much.
I need to say it.
Yes, ma'am.
My daughter told me don't say that. This is not the place for it, but I'm gonna say it anyway. A lot of people would always say, I look like Miss Gilstrap. And I said, well, I wanna be a Gilstrap. Because the Gilstrap, they got money, and I don't have it. And I'll be tickled to death to see if I look like Miss Gilstrap.
Well, you've had a chance to see, with this not being Black History Month, with this not being Women's Month, but you have seen some wonderful women and who have really done well in Greenville. And, you know, we always talk about the fact that, you know, Greenville's not this and Greenville's not that. But we want you to know you have some wonderful women here in Greenville, and we all have a story. And I want you, as you go through and you get a chance, talk to your children. Talk about your story and let them know what has gone on in their family so they can be up here and they can discuss Greenville in a positive manner. I'm tired of hearing the negatives on Greenville. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.